That's
I'm here.
Hey, Jenna, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just enjoying all of these incredible sessions. I'm blown away today, and I can't believe we still have more to come.
So good, so good. Thank you all for staying with us throughout the day. This has been so much fun, and it's because all of you are here too. So, yeah. All right. So, Jenna, I'll leave it to you to introduce our next session.
Yeah, so I'm so excited and pumped to introduce Rain Bennett for our next session on how to use video to engage your audience at events. So Rain Bennett is a documentary filmmaker and storytelling coach, and he is a TEDx speaker. He's a two-time Emmy-nominated filmmaker, writer, keynote speaker, and storytelling coach for over 15 years. His company, 6 Second Stories, helps purpose-driven companies and organizations create short-form, heartfelt video stories to motivate their audience to take action. So his mission is simple: to teach people how to leverage storytelling to grow their communities and deepen their connections and maximize their impact in minimal time. So we're gonna paste in some of Rain Bennett's contact information and resources to learn, so that you can learn more about storytelling and the impact you can make. And so, yeah, just welcome, Rain, and take it away. Oh, I think you might be muted still.
Boom. How about now?
Woohoo!
Sounding good?
Sounding great.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me. You know, the TEDx thing is new, so hearing that in my bio just gave me a little tingle of happy sensation. That's coming up in November, so I'm pumped about that. Everybody in attendance, thanks so much for hanging out. I'm sure that you've had a lot of value today from the other speakers, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to. I think, Jenna, I think we're capping out today's summit. Is that right? We're finishing it off.
Yeah,
Right
we
on.
have this is our last main session of the day.
Well, I feel super duper privileged to be that person. I'm going to usher you through the finish line today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for my presentation. Is that okay with you, Jenna?
That'd be great.
Awesome. And if everybody in the comments could just let me know, I'm just going to try to share the PowerPoint presentation. Just make sure that you're seeing that and nothing else. If you are seeing the Digital Fundraising Summit in a full screen PowerPoint presentation, just say yes for me and let me know that all things are working properly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks good to me. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Not seeing anything else.
No.
Boom. Yes. All right, let's get started, folks. Okay, so we're going to talk about video today. My background, as you probably heard in the intro, is through storytelling specifically. Now, I've been a filmmaker for 15 years, so most of that is video storytelling, which, as we'll learn today, is the most powerful form, and except for being face-to-face with somebody. It's very similar, but there's a lot of different ways that we can use it. We can use audio, we can use text, we can use a lot of different things, but there is no argument now, and you're probably at this session because you know that there's no argument now about the power of video. I think it's something like 80% of internet traffic is now video traffic. So it's going to be really important for us to understand how to use that, how to leverage that to deepen our connections, to achieve the missions and the purposes that our organizations have. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But these shorter sessions, 30 to 45 minutes, they go by really quickly. I can talk about this for hours. I literally do on many days. So I don't want to just make this about the one-way communication that I have going to you, although we can do that. I want to know what you want to know, right? We can curve this presentation to go wherever you want it. So if you can do me a favor to start off with, just tell me a little bit about yourself, be brief, tell me your name, what your organization is, and most importantly, why you're attending this session today, what you hope to gain out of it. Like, what are you hoping to learn out of this? Because if I'm taking us one way and a lot of you are saying like, I really need to know this, Rain, or we're going to go that way because it's about you, not about what I have to say. It makes sense. Let me know in the comments what you're trying to gain out of this presentation. So we're talking about video at events specifically. I don't need to tell anybody out there that events since the past year, since 2020, have changed drastically forever, right? Even though we're starting to get back to live events, they've changed forever. However, the purpose of those events, what they're trying to accomplish, haven't, right? Whether virtual setting or live in person, which thank goodness we're getting back to live presentations. For me, that's like really where, you know, the energy comes from and what lights me up. But if you're in a virtual or a hybrid situation, you still have to accomplish the goal, which most often is something like connecting with people through your common causes, common values, right? Sharing experiences and growing communities, gaining supports, fundraising, inspiring action, getting people to sign up, become part of your community. These are the reasons that we have and host these events. So we have to be able to accomplish those purposes, those missions, and fulfill those reasons for being there, whether we are virtual or we are, oh, skipping ahead here, or we are in person. So before we get started, I want to ask you to do me a favor. We're all sitting here in our homes, possibly offices. I want you to look around you. Something that's, I'd prefer if you got up to get it, but something in your space that you don't have to leave for 15 minutes that is meaningful to you, that means something to your heart. I want you to go find it, grab it, pick it up, bring it back to the desk. And I just want you to write one sentence about what that is and why it's meaningful to you. Let me know in the comments. Take a few minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna do the same thing myself, okay? And I think that yeah. This one's good. All right. So let me make sure you guys are seeing this. Okay, everybody can see me now. This is an ashtray. This is an ashtray, a gold-plated ashtray, by the way, 24 karat gold. And it's full of coins that I've collected all over the world through my travels. Now, I got that in one of my first international trip. I went to Italy as a high schooler, Italy and Greece on a school trip. And my dad was a smoker, and so I got him this Italian ashtray, which seems kind of lowbrow, I'll say. But you know, it was a gift for him. The thing was, it was so fancy that he never used it. And my dad, who, yes, obviously smoked cigarettes, he also drank a lot. And I grew up in a really rough household in my childhood. He was abusive at times. He was an alcoholic, and it was tough. It was really tough. Now, years later, my mother and father separated. He quit drinking, and we really built a close relationship together. Now, this was the type of man, strong, silent country man, you know, Southern man. I'm from North Carolina, who like never left his chair. He'd read his newspaper in his chair, and he had his, you know, his ashtray, not this one, and his cigarettes beside him. And wherever my brother and I went, whatever we experienced, we were starting businesses and traveling the world and things like that. We'd always call him, and he'd be right there in that chair, but he'd be like, he was our rock. He was constant. We had built this great relationship with him after he quit drinking. But he didn't quit smoking. And eventually, as you can probably guess, that caught up with him just as we were starting to get close to him. And he got lung cancer, and I spent 6 months taking care of him. I was self-employed, so I could go down there a lot. I only lived 2 hours from him. And one night, I was set to go to DC the next morning on a week-long job, and he woke up and he had been coughing up blood. And I didn't know at the time, but it had been quite a lot. A blood vessel had burst, but I just jumped up out of bed and I grabbed him and I walked him to the living room and I got him to that chair that he always sat at, and I laid him down, and that is the moment that he died. And so I still have this ashtray, and I filled it up with all of these coins that I've had from all these worldly experiences that this man would never know, but who was always there to live vicariously through us. And when I look at that thing, that ashtray, that gold-plated ashtray, that's what I think about. Now, unless you don't have a heart, you might be feeling some emotions right now. If you're feeling something, from that little story, I want you to just say yes or just say why in the comments. Let me know how that impacted you. But most likely, you're feeling something, right? And most likely, we're all feeling similar things. Whether you've lost a parent or a loved one or not, you're probably feeling something similar. We are all connected right now, emotionally. This is how we connect as humans. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. This is the power of stories to make those connections. We have these events because we're trying to connect on a grand scale for a common purpose that we're trying to achieve, right? The most effective way that we make those connections is through these shared experiences, and we communicate those shared experiences through stories. This is why I'm so passionate about what it is that I do. So today we're going to talk about how to use that and how to use storytelling to make those connections and achieve our goals. So this is the way we've always communicated since these times, since caveman times, right? Back in the days, this is how we understood whether something was a threat, something was going to hurt us or help us, whether some caveman that we met in the woods was a friend or a foe. We exchanged stories. Oh, you know Brad? Oh, Brad's my cousin. Oh, well, we're friends now. Or if Brad's my enemy, we might not like each other too much. But if we do like each other and we understand that we're not about to kill each other, then we can trade together. Hey, I've got these bear skins. Hey, I've got a little bit of salmon over here. Let's trade. This is the way we've always communicated, but it really goes primal to understanding, is this going to help me or hurt me? And we use stories to communicate those ideas. This is science. This is the way our brains work. When you tell a good story, it elevates certain hormones, certain neurotransmitters in your brain so that you are latched on to what that person is saying, to what those stories are communicating, the messages they're trying to get across. I don't want to dive too deep into the science because I can do this forever and I don't want to bore everybody to death. But cortisol makes you pay attention. That's when things are tense, the rising action. That makes you sit on the edge of your seat and remember the story. That's important, right? Dopamine makes you feel good, makes you want to come back for more, also grabbing your attention. And that happens when you lay out a story in the proper structure. And oxytocin is the key of this storytelling cocktail that gets you euphoric on stories. That's what causes empathy. You understand what's going on in the story and what the person or people are going through. And when you have that empathy, you have trust. And when you tell a good story and you create that empathy, and then you give people a call to action, which is what we're trying to accomplish, they will take it. They will take it. There is science to prove that they will take it. That's what we're trying to do. This is the way we communicate as people. So, one thing that people get wrong when they're making their videos is they make a video and they just have a message, or they just include statistics and data, and they don't craft a story. A story is a way that you deliver. It's the vehicle in which you deliver that information, that data, right? This is how you want to package things with your video, even if it's a short video. And even if you're just talking to people on like a Facebook Live or a webinar or a virtual event, use the structure of stories to latch people's minds onto what you're saying and inspire them to take the action that you want them to take. That's what we're trying to do. So again, we could go dense. I'm just going to tease this for a second, because the biggest thing that we need to get right when we're creating our videos and our video stories is understanding the flow that it must have, understanding the structure that it must follow. This is the basic arc. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. There's a problem. Then there's this Act 2, this journey to solve the problem. And then there is the climax, the highest point of tension, and a resolution of that problem. Listen, we're not trying to be Shakespeare right now. We're not writing novels, and we're not making feature films. This is the simple way I want you to think about it. And this is a structure that you can use even if you're just hopping on a video, or even if you're doing a live event and showing a video. Just think about this 3-part structure: problem, the journey to solve that problem, and a resolution of that problem. I needed to know how to raise funds for my nonprofit. So I looked online for different resources, and I checked this and I checked that, and I read blogs and I listened to podcasts. And finally, I saw an ad for the CauseVox Digital Fundraising Summit. And I attended that for free and had 2 days of jam-packed sessions teaching me how to better my fundraising game for my nonprofit. Problem, a journey to solve that problem, and a resolution of that problem. When you start with a problem, you connect with people, because that's what they're going to empathize with. If they share that problem too, or if they can identify with that problem, they're going to want to go on that journey to figure out what happens. Does that make sense so far? I'm looking at some of your comments about what you're trying to learn. Yes, it makes sense. I'm interested in understanding narrative and how to correlate my story with the organization's narrative for this anti-recidivist nonprofit that I've founded. How to raise funds from my nonprofit. Yeah, I see that. That's very clear. How to balance impactful storytelling without veering into exploitation. That's a good point. You can send me a direct message too if you all have any other questions. So Dr. Paul Zak is probably the godfather of neuroeconomics. It's the study of how and why the brain makes decisions. And he studied that and proved that, his research team showed that when you tell a good story, those neurotransmitters that we talked about, those neurochemicals that we talked about, those hormones were elevated. But they also studied respiration, skin conductance. They took blood, all of that sort of stuff. And it showed that, one, empathy, when oxytocin would be elevated, empathy would rise, and it would cause people to donate, to take action. And he did it with a video about a kid with brain cancer and his father coming to terms with that. Really sad video. We've already had a sad story today. We don't need to again. And then they compared it with a control video where it was just the boy and his dad walking along the zoo and looking at animals. There was a structure, but it wasn't really a story. There was no narrative. And that falls flat. It doesn't inspire us to take action, to want to donate. And the most powerful way to tell a story, besides being in person, where we can connect and see another human's face, is to do that through video. Because effectively, it's almost the same. We can't touch each other, but we can see those emotions. That's how we gain that trust. We can see, you guys, we can pick up on inauthenticity a mile away. So when you get the chance to see someone's face and see their expression and see what they're emoting, that is going to trigger your human sensibilities that we've had since the beginning of time. You're going to believe them. You're going to trust them. This is why video is so powerful, and this is why using it is so powerful. But we have to follow that structure. So even though we can talk today about the ins and outs of certain uses of video, and we're going to, if you don't understand how to lay it out properly in a way that's going to move your audiences to action, my fear, my friends, is that you're going to waste time, waste money looking at the right equipment to use, hiring a video production agency, trying to do it yourself, and not understanding these basic timeless tools of human connection and human communication. This is the first step. Once you have this, you can use whatever tools you have access to create video stories. And we all have amazing tools in our pockets right now. So you don't need fancy cameras. You don't necessarily need big video production companies, even though that can help depending on your goal. All you really need first is to be able to understand, how do I deliver the information that I have in a way that's compelling and that will make people want to take action. So when you get to that point and you're thinking about how do I use video, your mind may look something like this. Where do I start? You've got analysis paralysis. Every 6 months, there's a new camera. You don't know how to use any of them. Every few months, there's a new platform to use. Facts. Like, there's so many questions. This is the problem when we put tools ahead of skills, right? What I want you to do is to try to get good at that skill of storytelling so that you use whatever tools you have access to at the moment. And then as you go on and as you get better, you add new tools to the toolbox. This is relatable, Leah. Fact, says Will. Absolutely. You know why I know? Because I'm human too, and I do the same thing. You were all going through this. How long should it be? I'm skipping ahead. How long should it be? Where should I put it? Can I repurpose it? You know, what long? How long is too long? All of this. Who's on camera? How to be good on camera. Reduce it back down to simple storytelling techniques, because this is how humans communicate. We are not designed. Go back to those caveman days. We are not designed to ingest and digest and understand lists of bullet points and data, especially lists and data about your organization. We've been in business this many years. We have this many staff members. This is how many. Nobody cares. They only care about the problems that you're going to solve for them, the things that they care about, right? Tell good stories. You don't need to give them a bunch of lists about what your organization does. Inspire them with a story. And once you understand that simple communication strategy and tactic, and it's not even a strategy and tactic, it's the way we communicate as people. Then you weave in, that's the spoonful of sugar for the medicine that must go down. Then you weave in the data that you want them to understand. This is the problem that we're facing. You ever seen politicians like, I met a woman named Kathy in Iowa. That kind of sounded like Bill Clinton. I didn't mean for it to. I met a woman in Kathy named Iowa, and she's going through this. Why do they do that? Because we can relate to a Kathy in Iowa, because we all know a Kathy who's a school teacher and overworked and underpaid, right? We can relate to that. We can't relate to 100,000 teachers are underpaid and overworked. It doesn't make sense to. We can't relate to that. We relate to people, which is why it's so important to use video to show people talking to people. But I know that these questions come up and this is the thing that's on your mind. So I want you to go back to that simple structure of problem. What's the problem? What's the journey to solve that problem? And then what is the ultimate resolution of that problem? The reason why stories are so effective when using video or any other medium, any other format, is because they do these four things. They grab attention. Video is visual. Our eyes and what we see in our eyes is so connected to our brains. That's what captures our attention, especially when we see human faces. That's why all marketing puts human faces on a computer or whatever. Even, if it's promoting something that has nothing really to do with people, it's a product, they show people because that's what we connect with. It makes sense. So seeing that visual, even if it's a flashy visual, using some graphics and using, some sort of, I don't like to say gimmick, but something to grab their attention. It still works that way. But stories grab your attention because people want to listen. 2, we already talked about, they create understanding, empathy, right? You have that trust factor because you communicate ideas in a way that people can understand it, because why? Our brains work that way. Our brains understand things when they're laid out in an arc, in a narrative. 3, it makes it memorable. We also alluded to this with cortisol. When you tell a good story and someone hears a good story, they can take that nugget and remember that a lot better than that list of data or list of stats. And because it's memorable, and this is the most important part, it's repeatable. So they can share it to other people. That's what makes something viral. That's what makes those stories spread, right? Making it memorable makes it stick in their brains. But because it's repeatable, that's what allows it to spread. And if you're hosting events where you have lots of people, we've got hundreds in the audience today, right? Having those people go home or talk to each other about it, or go home and talk to other people, is key with what you're trying to do. So let's break it down now and spend the rest of the time talking about how we can use this storytelling and how we can use video in events. Now, basically the way I see it is, for the foreseeable future and probably in perpetuity, we're going to understand that we are going to have live events again, and we already are, and we're going to have virtual events like this, because the virtual events have opened up some new doors of opportunity to us. Does everybody agree with that? Is anybody's organization hybrid is here to stay? Absolutely. Because I'll tell you, I'm going to, hell yes. I'll tell you, one client of mine, the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation, they deal with the rare cancer, neuroendocrine cancer. And I used to create videos for them. I traveled and shot videos telling the stories of patients and doctors and different treatments, etc. Well, when the pandemic happened, that stopped, right? I stopped traveling all around the country to do that. And they pivoted. I know we've overused that word, but they started a virtual talk show every week where I'm the host. And it's called Luncheon with the Experts. And I host a different expert in this rare cancer from around the world every Thursday from 12 to 1. And we've done it for a year and just got picked up by the sponsors for another year. The amount of people that we're reaching, there's about 120 that attend all over the world, even in Australia when we're at noon Eastern time and it's like midnight their time, or all over the world they attend. And by the end of the day, that 24-hour period, thousands of people have viewed that show. To replicate that in real life, well, you'd have to pay the doctors, you'd have to get their time, you'd have to fly everybody out. Come on, it's impossible. We need to approach both of these and understand how can we use video in either format to make an impact. So let's look at some of the common live events that we're going to have. And we'll look at impossible. Online have been much more successful, less expense than physical events. Yeah, absolutely. Fundraisers belong under both headings. Fair. That's a fair point. You know what I was thinking there, Mimi, was like the old school like gala fundraiser. So totally fair, totally understood. Shamara, you asked when your personal life story is why you create a nonprofit. Where do you start in the timeline? Let's come back to that. I will finish this slide and I want to talk about that. So for a fundraiser, like a gala, like oftentimes I'll give you an example. I did a video for the American Red Cross a few years ago after Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, and it was their annual Red Cross ball, fundraiser ball. And the video, the film that I made for them, which was like 5 minutes, was about my journey going down to Eastern North Carolina, where I'm from, and helping people. I raised money on my own just through friends and alumni of my high school, and I raised a few $1,000s to go down there and directly help people in need. And I filmed it. And then along the way, I met up with the Red Cross team and saw the work that they were doing. And I ended up creating this film from the content for them. But it was my personal story about going down there. It was a story about one person going down there to help the people that he cared about. And the Red Cross didn't put themselves at the forefront of it. We told their story about the impact of what they were doing for Hurricane Florence through my eyes and my lens. But that's one way that many people use videos, having it as like the centerpiece of a live fundraiser and inspiring people. And let me tell you, people left weepy. And because of all that science and neuroscience that we talked about at the beginning of this, that's what made them donate and raise over $100,000 at that event. I think it was over $200,000. This thing happens too with rebrands or brand awareness events. I did another video for a local organization here in Durham called Student U, and they help kids from, I think they start in 7th grade, first generation college students, get to college and then excel at college. So it goes into their college career, but it starts around 5th or 7th grade. And they told, they were rebranding everything. They had a big event. The mayor of Durham was there. Hundreds of people were there. And they told the story of one girl, one success story that they had. And this person got a full ride to the University of North Carolina. She was going to go to medical school. And because of what she learned through Student U, she actually went to become a teacher. And she works at Ida B. Wells Middle School in Washington, D.C. now. And so they showed the reach, the purpose, the impact of their organization through Niatakwe's story and her going on to impact the next generation. So you see the snowball and the ripple effect from their organization. Now, when they're telling people about their new brand, about, their rebrand, they're trying to raise awareness about their organization in the local community. That story has impact. That story has impact. The last live event that I'm working on currently is with an environmental organization called Sound Rivers. We're making a film to help ignite the passion for environmental health in the young generation, right? To protect the waterways of North Carolina. And they're having film screenings of this 20-minute documentary just to spread the idea. They're not asking for donations, although I'm sure they hope they get some. They're not asking for people to sign up and become members. They're just trying to spread the idea of conservation and taking care of the local waterways so everyone can have access to swimmable, drinkable water in Eastern North Carolina. Let's look at virtual events, conferences, and summits like this. I worked with Downtown Durham. I live in Durham, North Carolina, if you haven't picked up on that. I worked with Downtown Durham Inc., who did a State of Durham this year, their State of Durham summit that they do every year. And they still did it virtual this year. And they're hosting it and standing and having a keynote just like you would in a real, live conference. The problem that you face when you do that is when you're trying to replicate a speech on video, you have to understand that you're not in person. You're not going to be connecting with these people like you would in real life. You have to bring the energy in a totally different way so that you can have that connection and people aren't tuning out. And you're in Durham, what's up? Burn, hit me up. Let's talk. You have to connect with people even more because it's so easy for me to be in. If I were you attending in the summit, I'd be over here checking my Instagram, doing something, looking at other screens, and you'll lose them. It's hard enough to keep people's attention in real life. So to do that, you have to be prepared. So if you're going to go give a speech at a virtual summit like this, you need to have a script and you need to know that script. You don't just need to have a script. You have to know that script and rehearse it so that when you deliver it on camera, a lot of times you're not going to have a teleprompter. If you do, that can help. Little side note, don't have it too close. The farther away it is from you, the easier it is not to see your eyes going back and forth. But if you don't, and you don't know that script, you're going to be looking uncomfortable. You're going to be looking off camera at somebody holding a cue card off to the side. It doesn't work. You have to know that idea so well that you deliver it looking right here at the people you're talking to, which in this case, when you're doing it virtually, is the lens. Practice in front of a camera. Get comfortable looking at that lens. If you're doing something here on a webinar, you have to understand that, yes, I see faces over here. I see Jenna and I see Candace in my Zoom window, but this is where I'm looking at people. And that takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. You have to understand that I need light on me. I can't be in the dark, right? All of these things that when you're doing live events are kind of done for you. They're kind of done for you. As long as we don't meet outside, okay, they're talking. We need an NC chapter. They're having side conversations. Pardon that. Speaking slowly and naturally, enunciating your presence. If you're giving a virtual event, that's a conference or a summit where you're giving a speech and you're having to keep up with what it was like when all eyes were on you and you were on a stage and a spotlight and a professional audio system was connected to you. You have to bring it because all those technical things are on a lesser level, and that's okay. Back to our point about storytelling. That's okay if you're delivering the message with heart, with intention, with energy, and with passion. We'll tune that stuff out. But if you aren't bringing that and you're stagnant and just dead and not having that energy, we will tune that out, especially because all the other technical things aren't at the same quality. Lights, audio, have a good microphone if you can, looking at the lens, be energetic, etc. When you have other virtual events, webinars, workshops, things like that, there's a lot of different ways that you can have video interaction so that we can keep having that personal connection that we yearn for so much. I did a speech for American Marketing Association earlier this year, and they had breakout rooms where, and that you're starting to see this a lot now, where people can jump out and have like a 5-minute, speed Q&A with a panelist or something like that. But then you get to see their face again, right? This is difficult. We can navigate this, but chatting, it works. But this is something that virtual presentations are challenged with, are tasked with. How do I connect with people when I can't see their faces? So utilizing video in any way is going to be helpful. Look for any opportunity to do that. And then I already alluded to my client, the Carcinoma Cancer Foundation, with their video series that they're doing. When you have series and events like that, having something either that was on Facebook, you can do YouTube Live, having any of the platforms that you have access to now that we all have free access to, you can use video to continue to push your mission and accomplish your goal. Every week we have hundreds of people attend that and thousands of people view it by the end of that day. Do you think it's not getting new members for their Facebook following and then therefore their email list? Absolutely. Do you think they don't have a bigger pool to go to now when, Giving Tuesday comes around or their annual appeal? Absolutely they do, right? So showing up and using the tool of video when you understand how to connect as humans is incredibly powerful, and you're being negligent if you're not using it. Don't let those questions, those voices in the back of your head, let me go back to that slide, that are making your brain feel like that, don't let them prevent you from taking action on using this tool. This is the second best way to connect with people behind being in their face and being in the same room with them. And as we've already said, and all of you have agreed, or many of you have agreed, virtual and hybrid are not going anywhere. I just saw something. This guy is making it rain. Sorry, I had to. I'm trying to catch up with the meetings, but I hope that's a compliment. Lee says suggestion to get teleprompter software or app to put on your computer or cell phone virtual presentation, especially when needing to give a speech. I agree with that. Not everybody can go off of the cuff or go off of memory by any means. So I agree with that. And I reiterate my point about not getting your eyes too close to that camera lens, because we will see that. So this is going to be my last piece before we take a few minutes for questions, and I scrub through some of the existing questions. When you are tasked with all these different events, virtual or live, and you're trying to understand, how do I use video? How can I capitalize on this tool? What way do I use it? All those questions that we talked about, this is the formula I want you to follow. I want you to reverse engineer it. I want you to ask, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want your audience to do? What action do you want them to take? Get specific. Is it sign up for your newsletter? Is it join your community? Is it to come off $5,000 after the dinner you just provided for? What is the action that you want them to take? This applies for virtual too. What do you want them to do? Then peel that layer back, go backwards. What will they need to feel? What emotion will they need to feel to be inspired to take that action? Because everything that we do is based off of our feelings and our values, what we care about, what matters to us. That's what inspires us to do things, right? Everything we do. When you break it down and look at, why did I do that? It's because something was going on in here. And that's what stories and that's what video taps into. What action do you want them to take? What emotion do they need to feel to be inspired to take that action? And then the last step, or the first step, depending on how you're looking at this, what kind of story, what kind of video in this case, would evoke that emotion? Does that make sense? Great. All right. We're passing on some information about Jenna or Candice. Let's see. It's 4:40. Initially, we were supposed to be at 4:45. Let me know how much time we have.
Yeah, no problem. I think we can go for at least like 5 to 10 minutes.
Sweet.
So yeah, let's start pulling out. We have a lot of questions.
Oh, are you going to deliver them to me?
I can deliver them to you if you'd like.
Well, I mean, I didn't know if you were going to. I don't mean to sign you up for that if you did.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Let me do one more slide so they can see. Can you guys see that? That's a little present that I have for you and my contact if you want to talk about these things more. But that little gift is just a free PDF, 52 storytelling tips, one for every week of the year, that you can look at and apply to your strategy, whether video, emails, whatever. But yeah, if you're up for that, I'll leave that up and I will field any questions. We did get a lot. So
awesome. So yeah, I guess we can start with Shamari's question about the personal life story and where you start in that timeline.
Okay, so, are you guys still seeing my?
I think the slideshow ended, but you're still sharing the screen. So you could maybe go back, or yeah, that works. Now we can.
Wait, can you see it now?
I think you just have to reshare.
Oh my goodness. So sorry, team. All right. Boom. That's back up then. Yes. Okay. Okay. Personal story. Where to start in the timeline? You know what? Our stories are huge, right? Nobody's expecting you to get your whole life story into one story, right? It's impossible. So I want you to think about it like this. This is any story that you see. Let's take a movie. Let's think about a movie. Every story has its own big arc. So your whole life does have an arc, right? Way too much for you to tell, right? But just like a movie has the whole film, and then it has 3 acts, usually, they have their own little arcs. And then underneath those acts are sequences or segments. They have their own little arcs. And down to scenes have their own little arcs, their own little problems that arise and resolutions that have to happen, their own little narrative arc. They fit together like those little Russian stacking dolls, like the Matryoshka dolls, I believe they're called. That's how your story is. So once you understand that today there's a little arc, this week there's an arc, this month there's an arc, and in your business there is this year's arc or last year's, there's definitely a story to tell there, or your whole one. So you don't just have one story. It really, go back to that last slide. It depends on the goal, right? So your story, the story that you're telling at this moment or at the moment that you're in, may be your origin story of your business. Why you decided to tell that. I know that you're talking about your personal story. It applies there too. What was the catalyst that set you on the journey that you're on today? Or it may be the revelation that you had earlier this year after the pandemic, right? So don't try to fit in your whole life story. Understand that you just need the essential elements, and they are dictated by the action you're trying to get from people, even if it's just inspiration. But you can't inspire somebody by telling them every detail of your life, right? I was trying to connect with everybody emotionally in the beginning of this presentation. So I told a story about why this meant, something significant, this ashtray with me and my father. I didn't tell the whole story of my father and my relationship. Too much. Make sense?
That's a great point. Thank you for clarifying that for
Yeah.
us. Natalie has another question about virtual gala videos. So she's going to be interviewing around 6 people, and then they're splicing their answers together. What's the best way logistically to go about that?
Okay. Weave them together like they're one person. The thing I like about documentary filmmaking is it's like creating a paragraph out of a bunch of pre-existing sentences, and you find the cool creative ways that they fit together. Like what is the little game with the magnets on the refrigerator with the words, and you can make up your own sentences, right? So when you interview 6 different people, you're probably going to ask them the same questions. Do not avoid, I'll say, having 3 people in a row answer the same question, right? We'll tend to get bored. Instead, pick the best one for each of those and have it flow together. That's what I would suggest. I would suggest trying to have that flow. Now, there are times where hearing everybody's answer to that question is appropriate, but there is something that people, organizations, companies do often that usually falls flat on its face, which is tell me what Durham means to you, and then just a collage of people answering that question. It's boring. You've heard 3 people say it, and you're like, all right, cool. This person likes it because of the art community. This person likes it because of the music. This person likes it. Where are we going? Right? Again, that is a loose gathering of data. We do not tune into that. Pull people in with emotion and a story. Ask somebody why they moved to Durham, and then ask them, well, what kept them here? What's their, you have to peel back these layers a little bit. So that survey approach that you're talking about is very common, but it's easy to lose people, especially if those answers aren't tied together. I would suggest finding some narrative thread that weaves them together so it feels like we're on a journey, like it's all one journey and not just a bunch of fragmented pieces.
Yeah, great insight there, to continue that storytelling technique. And then I'm gonna try to get through maybe two more. So Hannah is wondering what you recommend for storytelling for domestic violence nonprofit or anything of sensitive content, when safety and anonymity is so important. So how
Yeah.
do you invoke that emotion with anonymity?
Yes. Good question. A lot of the work that we are doing is with trauma. A lot of the work that needs to be done is with trauma, and that is not easy to navigate, right? Especially because of what you're talking about, privacy issues, right? I have worked with a lot of organizations. I've worked with one that was a school and residence for like very severely physically and emotionally abused children. Oof, it was heavy, y'all. And that was paramount, the privacy. So here's the thing. It's not someone's name that makes you connect with them, right? It's the things that they're experiencing. It's the struggles that they're going through. You can use a pseudonym, right? You can use a different name. You don't have to tell anybody's name or even those details. It's not those details that we relate to. It's the big heartfelt things, the struggles that they're going through, right? Me losing my father, what his name did and what his name was and what he did for work, where he lived, none of that is relevant, right? What's relevant is my heart's attachment to my father, even though we had this struggle in our past, and then getting a good relationship only for it to be pulled away, right? None of that has anything to do with his data, right? And so leverage the part about, unfortunately, a lot of us go through trauma, and hearing those tough to hear sometimes stories is motivating, is inspiring for us to want to help because we may relate to that, or our cousin or our brother or our mother, someone we care about might have experienced something similar. We may have experienced something similar. So it's
Mhm.
important to share those dark parts of the story because we can't have the light without the dark, right? We can't have that feeling of hope if we don't have that darkness and face it and be vulnerable with it. But certainly we don't need to sacrifice someone's privacy in order to do that at all.
Mm. Yes, very well said. I see a lot of questions like speaking to more of like the technical side of getting quality content out there. Can you speak to, I guess, like what is critical in making a high quality video? How do you do that on limited resources? What if you don't have a video team? Where should these
Yeah.
organizations with limited resources start? And do you have any resources that you can share with us?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and this is what I do. And so why the first half of this presentation was based off of building storytelling skill and not just like, here's a good app for mobile editing. Like that changes all the time. And you guys don't need me for that. You can Google that, right? My whole thesis, that my whole mission is to work with people who aren't professional writers and filmmakers and artists, right? Because that's most of us, right? So everything that I do, all the lessons that I teach are built off of like not having anything but these simple tools. So I would say go back and watch the first part of the program because it's all about understanding how we communicate. And then all you got to do is just, a friend of mine, Brian Fanzo, who's an excellent speaker, has his motto is press the damn button. Just start, just take action. You will get better. But first, I want you to understand what people care about and what information latches onto our brains. That's why I gave you the neuroscience to show you that this isn't just fluff. This is how our brains work. So it's not so much about, I'm not trying to be naive. I know that we have to understand some technical capabilities. Like we're going to have to make a decision on what camera we use. But if you just record and use this and just get that good content that people care about, they aren't going to care. Somebody's mentioning TikTok in this. That's why TikTok is so popular, because it's not so heavily curated and filtered like Instagram. That's why Instagram is plummeting while TikTok is skyrocketing, because what we care about ultimately, and more so now than ever, is authenticity. It's way less about doctoring things up.
Mhm. So if I'm understanding you correctly, are you saying that even a non-professionally produced video, should organizations go for that, use it?
Absolutely. If
Mm.
the alternative is nothing, 100 times out of 100, there is no question. If the alternative is a highly well-produced video, well, come on. Yes, that, if you can afford it. And there's a world in between, right? There's a lot of really talented people that can help you. I have a lot of resources. I put my information on there. people, I live and breathe this. I love it. You can email me at any time. And if you download that PDF, there's actually like a thank you email that is automated. It comes with it that has a list of all the things that I do that can help, from like free to cheap to expensive, like the whole gambit, right? This is what you're talking about right now is exactly what I do. Help people who aren't professional artists, writers, and filmmakers understand how to leverage storytelling, specifically in video, because that's, you know, where I cut my teeth. So yes, you start with understanding human emotion and what people care about and speak to those values. And you don't need fancy equipment to do that. The equipment changes every day, every week, every month. It's hard to keep up with it. And then when you get to the point where you've raised money to afford something, your own internal team or your own internal equipment, or to hire an outside agency like my company, then you can do that. But I highly recommend you working with someone who understands that same aspect of emotional storytelling that you had to use when all you had was this.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Rain, this has been wonderful. I don't know, Candace, do we have more time for more questions? I just want to check in.
Looks like we're at time, but Rain, this has been so fantastic. Thank you for being here, sharing all these amazing, really deeply psychological tips. I like that.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about story, right? And like, there's always a lot to say about nonprofit storytelling, and it's like, tell stories that connect.
I'll say one more thing, one sentence. The message is more important than the medium. Okay. So people don't take action because they focus and freak out so much about what medium, what format, what platform, so much that they don't ever deliver the message. And that is the tragedy, right? Deliver your message however, whenever you can.
Awesome. Thank you, Rain. There's one more question that was just asking, what organization do you do the weekly sessions on? I think they're interested in.
Yes, that's called the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation. Carcinoid cancer, also known now as neuroendocrine cancer, is the type of cancer actually that Steve Jobs passed away from. It's very rare, so we the public know that as just pancreatic cancer in his case, but it was a pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor. So it's a rare cancer, and it's really hard to diagnose because each case is unique. And so it's really important for us and the organization to educate people and spread awareness because it's rare, because they don't know about it. So weirdly, I know probably more than most general PCPs on that. And that's not a, boastful statement. It's just like most people have heard about it in medical school and then never again, unless they specifically work with that disease. So it's really important that we get the information out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rain, for joining. This has been incredible.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all at home or the offices for listening and watching.